You are listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by addclasses.com. Sign up now for free webinars by going to www.addclasses.com. This is Tara McGillicuddy, and I am the founder and the co-host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. In just a moment, I am going to be talking to you about the dark night of the soul and ADHD. But before I get started talking, I'll let you know a little bit about myself. I'm a woman with ADHD. I've been part of the online ADHD community for over 25 years. I'm a speaker. I'm an ADHD coach, ADHD advocate. I offer lots of resources for adults with ADHD, like addclasses.com, the online ADHD Awareness Expo. You can learn more about me and the products and services that I offer by going to my website, taramcgillicuddy.com. So today I'm talking to you about something maybe a little bit different. You may not have heard about it, and it's not often connected with ADHD. It's the dark night of the soul. So what is the dark night of the soul? It's a spiritual term, and it's basically when we go through tough times, like when we're hitting our head against the wall, when we go through really somewhat dark times. And the thing is, the reason on a spiritual perspective that we go through the dark night of the soul is because it brings us to a new place. It helps our soul learn. It helps our soul grow. But when we have ADHD, going through the dark night of the soul, has, I'd say, more challenges. It affects us maybe on a deeper level than a person that has a different type of brain than those of us with ADHD. When we have ADHD, we are more prone to depression. We are more prone to anxiety. We get more frustrated. So oftentimes when we go through that dark night of the soul, it can be, maybe something happened in the family. We lost a loved one. It's just that time where we feel like we're in this dark place, and sometimes there's no logical reason for why we're in that dark place and why we're going through that dark night of the soul. If you go through a major life crisis, like a death of a family member, loss of a job, something like that, at least there's a logical explanation to why you're going through it, and you'll know you'll get through it. If you're going through a grieving process, eventually, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. You come through it. You start improving, healing. But when we're going through that dark night of the soul and there's no logical reason, when we just feel like we're hitting our head against the wall, bumping into walls, when the things that worked out for us on a practical level, like routines or systems, the way we used to remove our clutter, maybe the way we used to exercise, that type of thing, and there's no logical reason, we can feel hopeless. So this is one of the reasons why I came on today to talk about that dark night of the soul, that a lot of people have been going through it. And I think we went through a collective dark night of the soul, so to speak, in 2020 when we went through COVID, or the beginning of COVID and all that. Our world just shifted. It was crazy for all of us. It was unprecedented was the thing, but we were all going through it. So in a sense, we were in it together. The dark night of the soul, I just went through a couple years where it was just weird things were happening. I was interacting with people that were very negative, and it was just one thing after another. I remember last year, it was every month, something new, something weird, something unexpected, things that I should have known better. I didn't need to spend my energy on these types of things. And I was just taking a class a few weeks back, and the people teaching it were talking about the dark night of the soul. It was a business class, and finding your purpose. And I've been stuck for the past couple of years. I've been, I've been in the ADHD community for 25 plus years, and it kind of got to the point where it's what's new and exciting? What can I do that's new and different? And I thought that was part of it. And I took like an assessment to figure out where I was in finding my purpose. And I was surprised to realize I went through, it was towards the end of the dark night of the soul. I'm like, oh, I didn't know what that was. And as many of you know, I've been on a spiritual type of journey for the past 10 years. I think I've always been on a spiritual journey since, I came into this life, but taking spiritual classes and learning lots of different things. So I was familiar with the term dark night of the soul. And I'm like, oh, I went through that, years before. And in my mind, it was like something you only go through once. And this time I was more, I think, equipped to handle the dark night of the soul type of thing. My emotions were better. I had more strategies. So to me, it wasn't as painful and as dark and as intense as my previous ones had been when I was younger. But, finding out that a lot of people have been going through these dark night of the souls. And I just thought it was really important to talk about it with ADHD, because I know a lot of us, especially those of us who found out we had ADHD or as adults or were diagnosed with ADHD, labeled, whatever you want to call it, once we had that label of, oh, it's ADHD, that in itself was healing. That in itself was like, okay, I can breathe now. There's a term for what I'm going through. I'm not just lazy, stupid, and crazy, or whatever the other, terms we were calling ourselves. And I know not all of my listeners are spiritual. Not all of my listeners are interested in the same things I'm into, but I know a lot of you are. So if you've been in that funk, that depression, that darkness for a while, and there's no logical reason, or you haven't come up with a logical reason to why you're going through it. Yeah, if you had an illness, if you had a job loss, or, the major life stressors, that makes sense. But for some of us, myself, I didn't really have those. It was just like, okay, but what it's supposed to do is kind of bring you to a new place, teach you new lessons. And when things in your life aren't working like they used to work, that might be part of the dark night of the soul, or just that funk and for me, it's more, I want to help you identify it, come up with a term and let you know there's hope. But it's not like saying, okay, it's dark night of the soul. That's what it is. For some of you, maybe that might be all you need. But, for other people, maybe it's that time to look at your coping strategies. If you're treating your ADHD, maybe you look at that treatment option. If you're on medication, maybe you talk to your prescribing medical professional about whether your medication is still working. This is a time to not only look at, okay, what have I learned from this darkness, this dark night of the soul that I've been going through for the past 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. That's also important. What did you learn? But now might be a time to reevaluate your strategies, your job, the people in your life. And, like I said before, maybe it's time to talk to a medical professional if you're treating your ADHD with medication or your other conditions, challenges, issues, quirks, whatever you want to call them. Maybe it's time to look at, is it time to work with a coach if you've been working with the same coach for 6 years? Is it time to shift it up to, maybe it's time to work with a new coach if you're working with a mental health professional? Maybe it's time to figure out whether it's time to switch to a new person, or if you're not doing any of those things, maybe it's time to bring new things into your life, like a mental health professional, a coach, a healer, doctor, I don't know, peer coach, whatever it is. But I think the thing is when we don't have, a lot of us, labels for what we're going through, and when we're hitting our heads against the wall, so to speak, because the time management strategies that we, used for 25 plus years of our life aren't working anymore. That affects our self-esteem, that affects our self-worth, that affects us negatively. And of course, as human beings, it's like, it's my fault. I must have done something wrong. And sometimes that dark night of the soul it's like a higher thing. It's about your soul being brought to a new level. And some of us, we can be brought very gradually. I know myself, I don't always get the messages, learn my lessons, so to speak, the first couple times with a gentle nudge. Sometimes I need a kick in the you-know-what, or to be hit over the head. So that's something to really look at. And then, what did you learn from this negative dark night of the soul experience? I mean, I know myself, I learned that I can speak up for myself. I think I learned that before, but I learned that I can really speak up for myself. But I can also learn that not every situation makes sense for me to speak up, so choosing my battle. So it's okay, we're going to reinforce the fact that you're able to speak up for yourself. Because when I was a child, when I was younger, it was not easy for me to speak up for myself. Still, it sometimes isn't. Sometimes I hold it in, and then when I speak out, I'm not as nice as I could be to people. So that's something I learned is, yes, you can definitely speak up for yourself. You have that control, you have that ability, you have that power, but sometimes you need to choose your battles. And for me, going through that dark night of the soul for the past couple years, and this has brought me where I am on a professional business level, that this is something I meant to speak about to my ADHD audience and maybe my spiritual audience also. So I just wanted to come on and maybe introduce you to the concept of the dark night of the soul if you've never heard it before. And, even if you have heard it, like I'd heard of this term, I went through it before, that, maybe this is that practical label that some of us really benefit for. Oh, that's what I am identifying it. That's what that is, that it's a dark night of the soul. It's not just that I failed for the umpteenth time, that there's a higher purpose. This is connected to my soul or whatever you believe in. And you can, maybe you become more spiritual. Maybe you open up spiritually. Maybe you do something that's more practical, more pragmatic. Maybe you read a book. Maybe you take a class to better your career. Maybe you switch jobs, or maybe you realize, wow, I'm actually really satisfied with this job. That's what this dark night of the soul helped me do. It helped me practice gratitude. I'm really grateful for the people in my life. Or maybe you realized there's some people that it doesn't make as much sense to be around as much as you were. So this is just something, introducing the concept. And if you connect with this term, dark night of the soul, if this is something that you're going through, just know that there's hope, that you're not going to be in it forever, that when you come out of it, a lot of times, well, I wouldn't say a lot of times, I think you come out of it stronger and better than you were before. But if you need help coming out of it, there are different types of options. I mean, Google the word dark night of the soul, and or go on YouTube, and there's probably multiple people talking about their experiences with their dark night or dark nights of the soul. Kind of like we did, when you first learned that you had ADHD, you're not alone anymore. There's other people that are going through this. And when you're connecting with other people who are experiencing similar things as you are, just being in that situation, it's helpful. And then knowing, oh, they came through it. They're okay. I'm going to be okay. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this ADHD Support Talk radio podcast. My name is Tara McGillicuddy. You can learn more about me and the products and services that I offer by going to taramcgillicuddy.com. And be sure to stop by ADHDsupporttalk.com, where you can find most of our past episodes. You can also sign up for our Facebook ADHD Support Talk radio community, where you can talk about this episode with other people and other episodes. So thanks again for listening to ADHD Support Talk Radio.